I used to think that socialism or social democracy and labor movement in Britain would go together with universal values that I cherish. Human rights, civil rights, workers' rights. And it's only when I went into the history of the Labour Party before the creation of the State of Israel, and especially in the early years of statehood, when the Labour Friends of Israel were established in the early 1950s, that I realized how important was this. Today I think we'll call it gaslighting. You know, this social democratic gaslighting. What do I mean by this? You have really the pillars of British socialism, really the pillars of British socialism, who, for instance, would definitely condemn apartheid in South Africa, fully supporting Israel to the extent that any attempt to show, as Rada and her friends would, any sympathy, empathy, a wish to with the Palestinians, a wish to represent the Palestinian cause, would immediately be destroyed by these particular leaders of socialism in Britain. It gives you some kind of a more profound and deeper understanding for the Jeremy Corbyn, or the attack on Jeremy Corbyn. It's not a new phenomenon. There are roots there of social democrats, by the way, not only in Britain, in Europe as a whole, providing a shield of immunity to Zionism in the name of social democratic principles. This is far worse than the right-wing support for Israel. The fascist right-wing support that Israel enjoys today, and maybe enjoyed a bit in the past, is easy to challenge, is easy to deal with, because you immediately say, you see who the allies are of this state, who is the allies of this ideology. But when the ideology that is being mentioned and quoted to explain why Israel is supported is one that you can identify with as a human being, then it becomes a bit more complicated. And it was very difficult, I think, for anybody challenging the support for Zionism and support for Israel when it came from either liberal or social democrat circles. And I wasn't aware of this, how deep it went into the Labour Party, even before the creation of the Conservative Friends of Israel, who are now the most important lobby for Israel in Britain, but how important the Labour Friends of Israel. Not to mention the specific outfits that joined the TUC, the Trade Union Council. The trade unions in Britain were giving affiliation to pre-state Zionist organization, whose role was before 1948 to advocate for Zionism, but Israel did not dismantle them because it turned it into part of the lobbying for Zionism for Israel in Britain. So you had pure Zionist organization having full affiliation and membership in the TUC, while any attempt to even create, at the beginning, a solidarity circle with the Palestinians in the trade unions was rejected as political and unacceptable. Unbelievable if you go back to it. And this is a time when people already visited Palestine and Israel. It was at the time when people began to understand what was going on. Of course, it became a bit more difficult when it was easier to visit and easier to get information on what was going on. But even then, it was not yet over for the Labour Party to show unconditional support for oppression, apartheid, colonization, ethnic cleansing, and nowadays not to speak openly and bravely about the genocide in Palestine. Shame on them and shame on this leadership that doesn't even have one word to say. But it has an historical root for this, and I think it's very important.